It was a cold Monday morning in the middle of the city, inside a busy cafe called Brewhouse. People were rushing to grab their coffee before work. The sound of milk steamers, the smell of fresh bread, and the soft background music created a warm atmosphere. But not for everyone. Behind the counter stood Jake Thompson, the young cafe manager. He was only 28, but already full of pride. His clothes were sharp, his hair perfect, and his tone always cold. Jake believed in one thing: keep the cafe clean, keep the people moving, and don't let anyone sit without paying. To him, kindness was weakness. He didn't care about feelings. He only cared about rules. The entry at 10:12 a.m. The door opened slowly. A cold breeze entered, and so did an elderly black woman. Her coat was old, her steps were slow. Her face showed tiredness, but her eyes were kind. She looked around quietly, and walked toward a small table in the corner. She didn't order anything. She just sat down and closed her eyes for a moment. Jake noticed her from the counter. He didn't like it. Another one trying to sit here for free. He muttered to a worker beside him. The confrontation. Jake walked over to the table. "Excuse me," he said sharply. "You can't sit here without buying something." The woman opened her eyes slowly and looked up. "I just need to rest, son," she said gently. "My knees are weak today. I'll be gone in a moment." Jake crossed his arms. "This is not a shelter. It's a business. You either order or leave." A few customers nearby turned their heads. She looked around nervously. "I'm not homeless. I'm just tired," she whispered. Jake didn't care. His voice got louder. "I don't care what you are. If you're not buying, you're not staying." Now more people were watching. One woman pulled out her phone and started recording. Still, the old woman didn't argue. She stood up slowly, holding onto the chair for balance. She gave a small, tired smile. "I understand," she said quietly. "God bless you, son." Then she walked out. No shouting, no anger, just silence. The reactions. The cafe went quiet for a moment. Some customers looked uncomfortable. A young man at the window said loudly, "That wasn't right." Jake rolled his eyes. "If you want to run a cafe, be my guest. Otherwise, let me do my job." But the video was already uploading to TikTok. 5 minutes later, Jake was back behind the counter when the door opened again. This time, it wasn't a tired old woman. It was a tall, confident black man in a navy blue suit. He looked around calmly, then stepped toward the counter. "Who's in charge here?" he asked politely. Jake looked up. "That would be me, Manager Jake Thompson." The man nodded. "Did an older woman come in here earlier? Gray hair, long coat, tired walk." Jake frowned. "Yeah, I asked her to leave. She wasn't a customer." The man looked straight into Jake's eyes. His voice didn't rise. His face didn't move, but his words cut like a blade. "That woman is my mother." Silence. The shift in air. Jake's smirk disappeared. People in the cafe froze. One girl gasped. The man stepped forward. "I'm Marcus Bennett, civil rights attorney, investor, and most importantly, my mother's son." Jake blinked, unsure what to say. Marcus continued. "She came in for a rest, not a favor. She's 73. She walks with pain, and you threw her out like trash." Jake tried to speak, but no words came. Marcus leaned in slightly. "He had no idea who she was, but you showed who you are." "Customers begin filming again," someone whispered. "That's Marcus Bennett. He's on the news all the time." A man near the door whispered to another. "He donated to rebuild 3 schools last year." Jake's hands were sweating now. "Look, I didn't mean." Marcus raised his hand. "I'm not here for excuses." He pointed to the security camera above. "I want the footage now." Jake's panic begins. Jake rushed to the back office. His heart was pounding. He called his assistant manager. "Get HR on the phone now. We have a situation." But it was already too late. The video clip from earlier had already reached 30,000 views on TikTok and growing. The caption read, "Elderly woman thrown out of cafe. Her son walked in 5 minutes later. You won't believe who he is." Back outside, Marcus walked outside to find his mother sitting on a bench. She was calm. "Why? Didn't you tell him who you were?" he asked softly. She smiled. "Because I wanted to see who he was." He sat beside her, holding her hand. "Ma, I'm not letting this go." She nodded. "I know, son, but don't destroy him. Teach him." Back in the cave, Jake walked out. Nervous, he tried to look professional. "We can offer an apology. Maybe a free coffee." Marcus looked at him without blinking. "This isn't about coffee. It's about dignity." He turned to leave but paused at the door. "You'll be hearing from me again. This story isn't over." Then he walked out. The door closed behind him. Jake stood still, cold sweat on his forehead. The cafe was quiet again. But now, it felt like everyone was watching. The next morning, Jake woke up to over 50 missed calls. His cafe was all over the news. The video of him yelling at the old woman had gone viral. 2 million views. The caption was now trending. "He threw out a tired old woman. Her powerful son walked in 5 minutes later." Back at the cave, Jake entered the cafe quietly. It didn't feel like his place anymore. Staff looked at him differently. Some didn't even say good morning. He checked the register, pretending everything was normal. But his hands were shaking. In walks the man again at 11:15 a.m. The door opened. Marcus Bennett walked in. wearing a dark suit again. No bodyguards, no noise, just quiet strength. Jake stood up quickly. Marcus looked around calmly, then walked. To the counter, customers stared. Phones came out again, he said. We need to talk now. The office meeting? In the manager's office? Jake tried to speak first. Mr. Bennett, I truly didn't know who she was. Marcus raised a hand. This is not about who she is. It's about who you are. Jake swallowed hard. She didn't buy anything. I just followed the rules. Marcus paused, then opened a folder and placed it on the table. It had newspaper clippings, awards, and photos. Photos of his mother, Miss Lindo, being honored as a nurse, as a teacher, as a mother of 5. As a community hero. Her story revealed. Marcus began speaking slowly. My mother raised us alone. My father died when I was 7. She worked double shifts at the hospital, still cooked dinner every night, still helped with homework, still smiled. Jake looked down. Marcus continued. She's been denied jobs because of her skin, insulted on buses, followed in stores, ignored in meetings. And yesterday, she was humiliated for needing to sit down for 5 minutes. Jake closed his eyes. I messed up. Marcus stared at him. Yes, you did. But there's more. Jake tried to explain. I treat everyone the same. Marcus responded firmly. That's the problem. You treat everyone like they don't matter. Then, he stood up. My law firm will be requesting the cafe's camera footage. My mother deserves an apology, publicly. Jake jumped up. Are you suing me? Marcus looked him in the eye. I don't want revenge. I want change. Back on the floor, word spread fast. News vans were now parked outside. Customers kept coming, but many were there just to see the scene. A woman ordered coffee and said, You're Jake, right? The guy who yelled at the old lady. He didn't answer. Staff members were whispering in corners. A new employee looked worried. She told another worker. I've seen Jake yell at homeless people before. No one ever said anything. The past resurfaced that afternoon. The regional office called. Jake's supervisor sounded tense. We've received complaints about your behavior. Not just this incident. Some staff said you've made unfair comments. In the past? Jake panicked. I never meant harm. I was just doing my job, the voice replied coldly. You're on temporary leave. Until further notice. Click. Jake stood frozen. Meanwhile, Ms. Linda, at home. Marcus sat with his mother in their quiet apartment. She poured tea, her hand still strong despite her age. She looked at her son. I don't want his life destroyed. Marcus nodded. I know, but he must learn, she said softly. Then teach him with wisdom, not with fire. Jake sat alone in his apartment. The cafe was quiet without him. No ringing orders, no staff voices, just silence and regret. He kept reading the same headline again and again. Elderly woman disrespected at CAF, her son, a powerful lawyer, demands public change. A message arrives that evening. Jake's phone buzzed. It was from an unknown number. Just one line. Come to 104 Perry Street. 9 a.m., don't be late. M. Bennett. Jake didn't reply, but he knew this wasn't over. The next morning Jake arrived at the address. It was a community center, not a law office. He hesitated at the door. Inside he saw kids reading books, volunteers serving breakfast, and seniors knitting quietly. At the back of the room stood Marcus Bennett, wearing jeans this time, not a suit. Jake approached him slowly. I thought this was about legal stuff, he said. Marcus smiled slightly. No, Jake. This is about something more powerful than law. It's about learning. A surprise meeting. Marcus led Jake to a small room inside the center. Sitting inside was Ms. Linda, the woman Jake had thrown out. She smiled gently when she saw him. Jake froze, his mouth opened, but no words came. Marcus nodded. Go ahead. Jake stepped forward slowly, his voice cracked. I was wrong, deeply wrong. I'm so sorry. She looked at him kindly. I forgive you, she said softly. But now, it's time for you to understand why it hurt. The truth comes out. Linda began to speak. Her voice was calm, full of quiet strength. When I was your age, she said, I wasn't allowed to sit in cafes like yours, because of my skin. I had to stand outside, in the cold, hungry, tired. Jake blinked. He had never thought about that. I worked 40 years as a nurse, helped people of all kinds. But still, I get treated like I don't belong. She looked at him, eyes deep with truth. And yesterday, you didn't see me. You saw a problem. But I'm not a problem. I'm a person. Jake's hands trembled. He wiped his eyes. I never knew. I never thought about it like that. The lesson begins. Marcus stepped in. You want to change? He asked. Jake nodded. Then come here every day this week. No camera, no media. Just help. Learn people's stories. See what you couldn't before. Jake hesitated, then said, I will. Back at the Kaif. Meanwhile, the cafe was buzzing with new energy. Zara, the young employee, was promoted to acting manager. She made a few small changes. A new rest table sign. If you're tired, please sit. No purchase needed. A sign on the door. All are welcome here. People noticed. Comments flooded online. Wow, the cafe is different now. That new girl running it has a heart. Respect is finally on the menu. Jake's first day at the center. Jake returned to the community center the next morning. He served food. He helped a man in a wheelchair reach the bathroom. He listened to an old veteran talk about loneliness. For the first time, he wasn't the boss. He was a student of life. The transformation day by day. Jake changed. He laughed with a boy who didn't have shoes. He fixed a chair for an old man who couldn't stand long. He even sat with Ms. Linda during lunch. She told him stories of her childhood, her fears, her victories, and Jake just listened. No rules, no power, just heart. The sun was just rising over the city. Birds were chirping, but inside the old community center on Perry Street, something new was beginning. A sign was being placed. Above the door it read, Hope House Caf, all are welcome. Jake stood in front of it, in his hands, a ring of keys. He was no longer manager Jake of the big-name coffee chain now. He was something else. A new start. The cafe wasn't fancy. Old tables, no shiny espresso machines, but Jake smiled, because this place had something his old cafe didn't. Heart, and it had people who truly needed it. The first shift Jake wore an apron, not with a logo but with a name tag that simply said, Jake, I'm here to help. He opened the doors at 8 a.m. The first guest wasn't a customer, it was Miss Linda. She smiled as she walked in. Jake quickly moved to pull out a chair. Good morning, Ms. Linda. Would you like some tea? She smiled warmly. I'd love that. The people arrived soon, the cafe filled with life. A single mother with 2 kids, escaping the heat outside. A retired teacher who just wanted someone to talk to. A teenager struggling with school, looking for Wi-Fi and quiet. No one was turned away. No one was rushed out, and no one had to pay if they couldn't afford it. There was a small jar on the counter that said, pay what you can, or just smile. Zara visits at lunchtime. Zara stopped by. She had been made permanent manager at Jake's old cafe. Wow, she said, looking around. This is ... peaceful. Jake nodded. It feels right. Zara smiled. You seem different. Jake looked down at his hands. I am different. Jake's change becomes news. Later that week, a local news crew showed up. They had heard about the fired cafe manager who started a cafe in a shelter. Jake didn't want to talk at first, but Ms. Linda encouraged him. Speak your truth. Show them what growth looks like. So, Jake stood in front of the camera and said, I made a mistake. I hurt someone kind. But I've learned that titles don't make you important. How you treat people does. The video went viral again, but this time for the right reason. An unexpected visit one afternoon. A man in a suit walked into Hope House Caf. Jake looked up nervously. The man introduced himself. I'm Michael Torres, Director of Community Partnerships at Caf HQ. Jake stood silently. Michael continued. We've seen what you're doing here. We believe every neighborhood deserves a place like this. We want to fund 10 more. Jake's eyes widened. What? Michael smiled. But only if you lead the project. Jake hesitates. Jake looked around, at the mismatched chairs, the smiling faces, the old man playing checkers with a boy. He said, I'm not sure I deserve that kind of trust. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Miss Linda. She looked him in the eye and said, You're not the same man who threw me out. You're the man who opened the door for me. Today Jake took a deep breath and said, Then let's build 10 more doors. Cliffhanger ending that night. Jake sat alone. After closing, he looked at the sign on the wall. Hope House Caf, all are welcome. He smiled. Then he picked up his phone. He opened social media, typed a post. I used to run from mistakes. Now I build from them. He hit post. Just as he stood up, his phone buzzed. It was a message from someone unexpected. He read it and froze it. Said, You don't remember me, but years ago, I was just like her. I was the first one you turned away. And now I see you've changed. Can we meet? Jake stared at the screen. His past was calling. It was midnight. The cafe was quiet. The chairs were stacked. The lights dimmed. Jake sat alone at a table, still staring at his phone. The message was still on the screen. You don't remember me, but years ago, I was just like her. I was the first one you turned away, and now I see you've changed. Can we meet? No name? Just a number. Jake's heart beat faster. He tried to remember. Who had he hurt before? Who had he ignored? He replied with one word. When? The reply came quickly. Tomorrow. 10 p.m., Hope House Caf. The next day at exactly 3 p.m., Jake was waiting, hands clean, apron tied, tea already prepared. The door opened. A woman walked in. About 30 simple clothes, bright alert eyes. Jake didn't recognize her, but her face looked like someone from a memory long ago. She walked up slowly and said, Hi, I'm Alina. You threw me out 6 years ago. A forgotten past. Jake blinked. His voice was soft. Did I? Alina nodded. You managed a small cafe back then. I was 24, just lost my job. I came in, tired, hungry. I had no money. Jake closed his eyes. I told you to leave, didn't I? She nodded. You said, this place is for paying customers only. I walked out crying. Jake's shoulders dropped. I'm so sorry. I don't remember, but that doesn't excuse it. Elena's story. Elena sat down. She smiled gently. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to show you something. She pulled out a small notebook. I started writing after that day. I told myself, someday, I'll own a place where no one gets turned away. Jake was surprised. You opened your own cafe? Elena smiled. No, but I run a small food cart near the station. I feed people who have nothing, and I always remember your words, so I say the opposite. This place is for everyone. Jake smiled sadly. I was your lesson. She nodded. And now, you've become mine. The power of small moments. They sat together in silence. Then Jake asked, why reach out now? Elena replied, because I saw your video. I saw how you changed, and it gave me hope. Hope that even those who hurt us can grow. Jake's eyes filled with tears. He whispered, thank you for giving me what I didn't give you. A new idea is born later that night. Jake gathered Marcus, Ms., Linda, and Zara in the cafe. I want to start something, he said. What kind of something? Marcus asked. Jake replied, a program for young people who made mistakes. Give them one more chance like I got. Train them. Mentor them. Let them work here. Ms. Linda smiled. You mean, help the lost find purpose? Jake nodded. Exactly. We'll call it the Second Cup Program, because everyone deserves a second cup of coffee, and a second chance. Back at the old Caveman Weil, back at Jake's former cafe, things were changing to. Zara was now fully in charge. She had hung a new sign at the entrance. Kindness first. Always. A customer asked, didn't this used to be the place where that manager yelled at the old lady? Zara smiled. Not anymore. That place is gone. This is something new. The cafe was dark. The last chair had been stacked. The lights were off. Jake sat alone, staring at his phone. The second message still glowed on the screen. Jake, it's me. You probably never thought you'd hear from me again. I'll be at Hope House tomorrow, 2 p.m. Tom. Jake whispered the name out loud. Tom? He hadn't said that name in over 10 years. Who was Tom? Tom wasn't a stranger. He was once Jake's best friend. In school they were always together. They dreamed of opening a cafe together. They promised, we'll serve good coffee, and even better kindness. But something happened. A big fight. A betrayal. Jake had taken a job Tom wanted without telling him. After that, Tom disappeared. Jake never heard from him again. Until now. The next day Jake wore his cleanest shirt. He made a pot of Tom's favorite coffee, medium roast. 2 sugars. At exactly 2 p.m., the door opened. Tom walked in, same sharp eyes. Same calm walk, but older, wiser. They stared at each other for a few seconds, then Jake spoke first. Hi Tom. Tom nodded. Still remember how I take my coffee? Jake smiled. 2 sugars. Always. They sat. The conversation. Jake looked down. I hurt you, he said. I took that job. I didn't tell you. I was selfish. Tom sipped the coffee. You were scared. You didn't believe you were good enough, so you grabbed what you could. Jake looked shocked. Tom continued. I was angry. But I wasn't just mad at you. I was mad that life was hard. That our dreams didn't come true. They sat in silence. Then Tom asked, so, what is this place? Jake looked around proudly. This is Hope House Cafe, where everyone is welcome. Even people who've made mistakes. Tom looked at him for a long time. Then said, I've been working in kitchens the last 8 years, serving food, but never serving purpose. I think I'm ready to come home. Jake's eyes lit up. You mean? Tom nodded. Let's build the dream again. Together. A new beginning. That evening, Jake stood with Ms., Linda, Marcus, Zara, Elena, and now, Tom. He looked around the small cafe. Different people, different stories, but the same mission. Second chances, real kindness. A place where hearts matter more than money. He looked at Tom. Want to co-manage this place? Tom smiled. I'd be honored. Meanwhile, trouble is coming, but while Hope House Cafe grew stronger, elsewhere, someone was watching. In a tall building. A man in a dark suit slammed his laptop shut. He growled. So that's where Jake ended up. His assistant looked nervous. The man continued. He's starting to get too much attention. His story is going viral. People are talking about changing how we treat customers. That's bad for business. The assistant asked. What should we do? The man said. Call the board. We're going to shut that little cafe down. It was early morning. Hope House Cafe should have smelled like fresh coffee and warm toast, but today, it smelled like trouble. Jake stood in the middle of the cafe, holding the city notice in his shaking hands. Immediate closure requested. Marcus read the fine print again. It says we don't meet commercial kitchen codes. Jake nodded slowly. It's not true. We've passed every inspection, Tom said. They're not attacking our cafe. They're attacking what we stand for. Rising panic. Customers began arriving. Regulars, first-timers, people who came for warmth, not just coffee. They saw the paper on the door, closed until further notice. One old man knocked and said, please, I just needed somewhere quiet to sit today. Jake's heart broke. Miss Linda stepped beside him. You opened this place for people like him, she said. Jake's jaw tightened. Then we're not closing. The team meets inside. The full team gathered. Jake, Ms., Linda, Marcus, Zara, Elena. Tom. Jake spoke. They want to shut us down, but this cafe doesn't belong to just us. It belongs to the people, and people fight for what they believe in. Marcus stood up. My brother's good with media. Let's tell our story again, Zara added. I'll print flyers. Save Hope House. Alina smiled. I know a group of mothers. They'll bring their kids and cook outside if they have to. Tom said simply. Let's serve justice cup by cup. The video that night, Jake sat in front of a camera. His voice was steady, eyes honest. They tried to close us, not because of health, not because of danger, but because of truth. Because kindness is louder than profit. The video ended with, "We are Hope House, and we are not afraid." They posted it online. Their response by morning, the internet exploded. People shared their own stories of being mistreated in big cafes. Customers who once stayed silent now spoke up. Former employees of the chain told the truth. Hashtag Save Hope House began trending. Journalists arrived. Even local news stations aired Jake's story. A public stand 3 days later. The cafe held a public gathering outside. More than 100 people showed up. Signs read, "Kindness first. Coffee with a heart. We are Hope House." Ms. Linda spoke. Her voice was strong. They called us small. But small voices can shake big buildings. The crowd cheered. Jake stepped forward. He raised his hand. I was once part of the problem, but now I'm part of the change. A call from the top back in the corporate tower. The CEO of the cafe chain, Mr. Clayton, watched the news. His assistant looked nervous. "Sir, the board says this is turning against us." Clayton scowled. "Call the lawyers, tell them to back off." An unexpected twist at that moment. Jake's phone buzzed in an email. From the city office, he opened it. Subject: case closed. Hope House CAF cleared for operation. Everyone cheered. Tom grabbed a broom. Then let's open the doors again. It was a new morning. The sun rose gently over Hope House CAF. The street was full of life, laughing children. Old friends hugging. A long line at the cafe door. Inside, something had changed. But not the coffee. Not the wooden tables. Not the small bell that rang when the door opened. What changed was the spirit. Because now, people came not just for coffee, but for hope. 1 year later, Jake stood in a brand new cafe. It looked just like the first Hope House. Same wooden walls. Same handmade signs. Same simple kindness. But this one was in a different city. And it wasn't run by Jake. It was run by Alina. She poured a cup for a tired mother and smiled. "First cup is on the house," she said. "The second is for your heart." The dream had grown in 1 year. Hope House CAF had spread to 12 cities. Each cafe had a second cup program for training ex-employees and young people who needed a second chance. A free table for anyone who couldn't afford food that day, and a wall of kindness full of sticky notes with loving messages. At every location, the rules were the same. Be kind, be present, be human. Jake's speech in the anniversary of the first cafe. A huge event was held. People from all over came. Jake walked up to the small wooden stage. His voice was soft, but clear. "A year ago, I was the man who threw out a kind woman. I thought money mattered more than manners. But today, I know better. Kindness doesn't just change people, it changes the world." He paused, looked around at faces smiling, some crying. "We didn't just open cafes, we opened doors. For stories, for second chances, for people like me, and maybe, people like you." Marcus becomes the mentor. Marcus, once just a shy boy cleaning tables, now trained new staff. He was patient, thoughtful. He told every new worker, "We don't just serve coffee here, we serve healing." Zara's leadership. Zara, the brave young manager from Jake's old job, now led the Hope House Youth Network. GOT helped schools start their own kindness projects. When asked why she left her old job, she smiled and said, "Because here, I found something better than power. I found purpose." The return of Ms. Linda. Ms. Linda, the gentle elderly woman who started it all, still came every Friday, still ordered the same tea, still left the biggest tip. One day she walked up to Jake and said, "You gave me more than tea. You gave me the joy of watching a broken man become a builder." Jake hugged her, tears in both their eyes. "And you gave me my wake-up call," he said. "I'll never forget that day."